once they enter into the host body or once they infect the person, then only they will start to replicate in the cells of the infected person. And the World Health Organization has started a large number of programs in order to prevent the spread of HIV infection by sharing infected needles, as in the case of intravenous drug abusers. The AIDS can spread from one person to another. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to today's session on chapter 8 of 2nd PUC, that is Human Health and Diseases. I am Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about vaccination and immunization, and also we discussed about the immune system in the human body, wherein we studied about the lymphoid organs which provide the immune response in the body. In today's session, let us talk about a disease which is a syndrome that is called as AIDS, and let's talk about the replication of the retrovirus that is responsible for the AIDS. So to begin with, let us see what AIDS is. So AIDS is nothing but it is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So the word is split into two, acquired immunodeficiency. So acquired means you're getting it from somewhere because of your particular negligence. So humans, they acquire this particular disease or they get this particular disease from another person merely because of his negligence or because of the bad habits that he has. And immunodeficiency, because he gets that particular disease from someone, his deficiency will drastically reduce. So that is why it is called as immunodeficiency. So here under acquired immunodeficiency, the deficiency of the immune system that is acquired during the lifetime of an individual, indicating that it is not a congenital disease that is got from one person to another. And the word syndrome, so acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So syndrome means a group of symptoms. It is said that a person suffering from AIDS means he has a lot of symptoms. Why a lot of symptoms develop is because his immune system would have drastically come down. So that is why the name syndrome has been given, because if the person acquires this particular disease, his immune system will become deficient or reduced, therefore leading to a collection of symptoms in the body. So therefore, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So AIDS was first reported in the year 1981, and in the last 25 years or so, it has spread all over the world, killing more than 25 million people. So AIDS doesn't have a particular medication. Only thing is the symptoms can be reduced and the lifespan of the person can be prolonged to a certain extent. Apart from that, AIDS can never be cured. So that is why it is always better to prevent contracting AIDS rather than getting AIDS and then searching for a cure. So that is why it is one of the deadly disease which spreads from one person to another because of negligence. So AIDS is caused by the virus HIV, which is called human immunodeficiency virus, and this virus belongs to a member of the virus family which is called as retrovirus. And these retrovirus, they have an envelope or they have a covering or a coat which contains the RNA genome. So AIDS is caused by a retrovirus called as the human immunodeficiency virus, that is HIV virus. This HIV virus is covered by a protein coat, and inside that protein coat is present the RNA genome of that particular virus. And the HIV is transmitted from one person to another because of various reasons. So one such reason is because of sexual contact with the infected person and because of the transfusion of blood from an infected person to healthy person. So during blood donation and all that, it is always better to check whether that person has AIDS or not before going into blood transfusion. So by transfusion of contaminated blood and blood products also, AIDS can spread from one person to another. And it can also spread by sharing infected needles. So in hospitals, that is why disposable needles are available. Always the staff nurse or whoever is dealing with you with giving the injection, that person should always open a new pack of injection or syringe in front of you. Never accept a injection which is already opened and brought, because we cannot say whether it is a used one or an unused one. So therefore, always prefer a new injection, and that too a disposable one. Why? Because if the same needle is used on an infected person and then it is used to inject an healthy person, then the chance of spread of disease is more. So that is why. And also during drug abuse, that is when people have the very bad habit of taking drugs, right? So during that time also, they have the habit of sharing that particular syringe through which they take the drug. So when they share that syringe also, the infection can spread. So therefore, by sharing infected needles, as in the case of intravenous drug abusers, the AIDS can spread from one person to another. And also, it can spread from an infected mother to her child through the placenta. So that is why. But the spread of AIDS from mother to child can be prevented if effective measures are taken in the early stages itself. Otherwise, if there also the negligence is done, then the mother can transfer AIDS, or this particular retrovirus can be transferred, or the HIV virus can be transferred from the mother to the baby that she is carrying through the placenta. So this is how the AIDS spreads. So AIDS is, it is a disease that spreads from one person to another because of all these negligence. So if all these are taken care of, then the spread can be curbed very, very easily. So there are certain people who are at high risk of getting AIDS. So what type of people are at high risk of getting AIDS? We shall look into. So people who have multiple sexual partners, because whenever he indulges with different partners, he will not know whether that person is infected or not. So therefore, always avoid having multiple sexual partners. And the persons who are taking drugs, that is drug addicts who take drugs intravenously, they also, because of sharing of needles, they are at high risk of developing AIDS infection. And individuals who repeatedly require blood transfusions, they are also at the verge of getting infected, because AIDS can also spread through blood transfusion, right? And also the children who are born to an HIV infected mother, they are also at high risk of developing HIV or AIDS. So HIV or AIDS is not spread just by touching, because I told you, I gave you around 5 to 6 factors how HIV actually spreads. But still there is a misconception in the people saying that if a person is HIV positive, if we just touch that person, or if we just sit with that person or go near that person, we may contract AIDS. No, that is a very big misconception that the society carries. It is always not true, because AIDS is not spread by touching the infected person, or it is not spread by physical contact, but it is spread only when the body fluid of that person enters into another person. That is how it will enter. I have shown you in the previous slides. So therefore, for the physical and psychological well-being of a person, the HIV or AIDS infected person are not isolated from family and society. So we should always keep in mind, sometimes that person will be kept isolated completely from the society or kept away from the society or family, thinking that just his presence somewhere near other people might infect that people, but that is always not true, because the infection can spread only if the body fluid of that person enters into another healthy person. Otherwise, just by touching or just by talking to that person or any other physical contact with that person will not lead to the spread of the infection. And there is always a time lag between the infection and the appearance of AIDS symptoms. So that is why AIDS usually goes unnoticed. Why? Because the time the symptoms develop, the person will not at all know that he has AIDS, because once the symptoms develop, prior itself, since many days he might have been infected by that particular disease. So we have to be very careful with that. So this period may be vary from a few months to many years, usually 5 to 10 years. It is just like cancer. Cancer also is one and the same, right? The person who has cancer will not know that he is having cancer. Only when the symptoms starts to develop after many years or many months, then when he goes for a checkup, he'll come to know what the exact problem is. Just like that, in the case of AIDS also, the person will not develop symptoms very soon once he contracts AIDS. But the symptoms will take about, that is 10 years or many months for it to appear. By that time, he would have infected other persons because of mere negligence. That is, because of sharing of syringes, because of negligence during blood transfusion and all that. So therefore, getting checked is very, very important. So next, let us study about the replication of the retrovirus. That is, how the retrovirus, that is HIV virus, replicates or multiplies itself in the host body. So we all know that the viruses outside the host body, they do not survive. They do not survive means they will be in the inactive form. Once they enter into the host body or once they infect the person, then only they will start to replicate in the cells of the infected person. So how exactly this replication occurs, we shall look into. So after getting into the body of the person, the virus will enter into the macrophages where the RNA genome of the virus will replicate. That RNA genome will start replicating inside the host cells and it will form viral DNA with the help of the enzyme reverse transcriptase. So what it will do is, it will make use of the, once it enters into the host cell, it will make use of the enzyme that is produced in the host cell, that enzyme which is called as reverse transcriptase enzyme. Making use of that reverse transcriptase enzyme, the virus will convert its RNA into DNA. Why? Because the HIV virus is made up of what? It is made up of a protein coat. Inside that protein coat, what is present? RNA is present. But when it is outside the human body, the virus will have RNA. But once it enters into the human body, what this virus will do is, it will start attacking the cells. Once it enters into the cells, it will make use of the reverse transcriptase enzymes that is produced, and using that enzyme, it will convert its RNA into DNA. And this viral DNA will get incorporated into the host cell's DNA and directs the infected cells to produce the virus particle. Very fascinating, right? So the virus changes its genetic material. Easy for somebody to change its genetic material from an RNA to a DNA or vice versa? Not possible. But look how the virus is designed to, in order for its survival, how it is designed. So what happens? So there is a retrovirus, that is the HIV virus. That HIV virus, what is it made up of? It is made up of, it is covered by a viral protein coat. So it is covered by protein. Inside that protein, what is there? RNA is present. So therefore, the retrovirus is made up of a viral protein coat and a RNA inside it, or a viral RNA core. So this virus, it will infect a person. So in that person's body, what is there? Cells are there. And what is there in the cell? Nucleus is there. In the nucleus, what is there? Chromosome is there. What does that chromosome contain? It contains DNA. So the person will have DNA genetic material. Now this virus, it should blend with the person's body, right? So what it will do is, once it enters into the person's cell, it will, the viral RNA that is there, it will incorporate itself into the cytoplasm of the cell. So as the virus, say for example, this is a cell. Now the retrovirus is trying to enter into the cell. As soon as it enters into the cell, it will release its RNA. So where will it release the RNA? It will release the RNA into the cytoplasm of the cell. Once it releases the RNA into the cytoplasm of the cell, what it will do is, it will make use of an enzyme in the cell which is called as reverse transcriptase enzyme. That using that reverse transcriptase enzyme, it will convert, or it will change its viral RNA into viral DNA. So now what was this? This was RNA. The RNA got converted into DNA. Now what is there inside the host cell? Already DNA is there, right? The host DNA is already there. So this DNA will go and incorporate itself in the host cell's DNA. So when the host cell replicates, what happens? These viral DNAs will also start to replicate. So that is how they multiply. And when the daughter cells divide, they will replicate and enter into the daughter cells, therefore spreading into the body. So that is how it occurs. So here what happens? The viral DNA incorporates into the host DNA, where in the host cell what is there? Nucleus is there. Inside the nucleus what is there? DNA is there. In this particular DNA, it will get incorporated. Say for example, these round red strands that I am drawing is viral DNA. Which virus DNA? The HIV virus DNA. From where did the DNA come? The RNA of the virus, once it entered into the cytoplasm of the cell using the reverse transcriptase enzyme, it got converted into the DNA. That DNA will enter into the nucleus, and there inside the nucleus what is there? The DNA is there. There it will get incorporated as I have drawn. So when it gets incorporated, we all have learnt in biotechnology, that is molecular basis of inheritance chapter, how replication occurs, right? So when they replicate, what happens? The new viruses are produced. So new viral RNA is produced by the infected cells, and therefore new viruses will get produced. And these new viruses will enter into the other cells, therefore infecting the other cells. So this is how the particular replication process occurs. So this is how replication of retrovirus will occur. So the macrophages, they will start to continue to produce virus, and this way it acts like a HIV factory. Continuously replication will occur, therefore the virus will multiply, and the whole body of that infected person will become like a virus producing factory. So that is how the replication of the HIV virus occurs in the human body. And simultaneously, so once it replicates, what happens here is, now what is the disease called? It is called acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So when we say immunodeficiency syndrome, then these viruses should go and attack the lymphocytes, right? So next what they will do is, after multiplication and after replication, they will enter into the helper lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, which is called as the TH, that is the helper T lymphocytes. Then again in the helper T lymphocytes, they will replicate and they will produce many number of viruses or progeny of viruses. And the progeny of viruses, or the multiplied viruses that are there, they will be released into the blood, and they will start to go and attack the other helper T lymphocytes. And this repeated attacking of the other helper T lymphocytes will decrease the number of, it will decrease the number of the helper T lymphocytes in the body of the infected person. So if lymphocytes, T lymphocytes are reduced, means the body's immunity will completely get reduced. That is why this disease is called as immunodeficiency. So when the body's immune cells completely gets infected, then the person will develop different types of symptoms. That is why he got it from somewhere, acquired immunodeficiency, because the immune cells will become reduced and a collection of symptoms will happen. Therefore, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So this is about the replication of the retrovirus. So next let us study about what are the different symptoms, because I told you by the time the person starts to develop symptoms, actual symptoms, he will not even know that he's been infected with HIV virus. So it is very important to learn what are the symptoms so that very soon diagnosis can be done. So during this period of HIV infection, the person suffers from fever, that is recurrent occurrence of fever will be there, and he'll have diarrhea and also weight loss will occur. And apart from that, because of the decrease in the number of helper T lymphocytes, the person will start to suffer from variety of infections. So he'll start suffering from different types of infections. That is why, because immune cells have come down. If the immune cells had not come down, then all these infections would have not caused problems. Say for example, common cold. So if a healthy person gets common cold, within 7 days it will get cured. Whether you take a medication or not, it will get cured because the immune cells will help to cure it. But in the case of HIV infected person, because his helper T cells are drastically reduced, his body's immunity will be completely weak. Therefore, even a simple common cold also will be like as if he's got a very big disease. It will become like that because it will never get cured, and finally it might lead to respiratory problems and all that ultimately. So, that is why he'll develop many types of symptoms. Say one of the best example they have given us, especially he may develop infection very easily because of mycobacterium, because of viruses, fungi, and even because of parasites such as the toxoplasma. So all these we usually don't contract. Why? Because our body's immune systems are very, very good and functioning. But that is not the case in a HIV infected person. So, all these pathogens are trying to enter into our body as well, but we are capable of overcoming them. But the HIV infected person will not be capable of overcoming them because of the reduced immune system in his body, and the patient becomes so immunodeficient, that is immune cells will become so less that the HIV patient will be unable to protect themselves from a variety of common infections. So therefore, a lot of symptoms will get collected, and that is why this disease is called as a syndrome, which meaning collection of symptoms. Next, let us see what is the diagnosis and treatment that is used for HIV. So, the widely used diagnostic test for AIDS is called as ELISA, which means enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. So, this is usually done in the laboratory, wherein the sample of the infected person is taken and the test is done like all the other tests are done. But here the procedure followed is enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. And the treatment of AIDS is possible, but it cannot be cured, but the symptoms can be brought under control with the help of antiretroviral drugs, those drugs which work against the retrovirus, that is the HIV virus, such as the antiretroviral drugs. And they can also, apart from that, they can also prolong the life of the patient, but the death cannot be prevented. So therefore, always remember the term prevention is better than cure. That is true. Instead of contracting the disease, try preventing the disease, because the fate of the HIV person is decided. He will die. So that is why, because there is no medicine for that. Only thing is the symptoms can be reduced and the lifespan can be extended to some extent. But apart from that, the final judgment of that person is death itself. So that is why always we have to follow good measures in order to prevent this particular disease. Next, let's talk about what are the preventive measures that the government have taken and what the society can follow. So the National AIDS Control Organization, which is formed by India, which is called NACO, and some other non-governmental organizations such as the NGOs, they are doing or they are undertaking a lot of programs in order to educate the people about AIDS. So we find some government advertisements, there are some skits and dramas that are staged in villages, and even in textbooks also education about this. Say for example, even you're studying about this now, right? So that is how the government are introducing very, very minute measures in order to educate the people against AIDS. And the World Health Organization has started a large number of programs in order to prevent the spread of HIV infection. And also, in the case of blood banks, the blood bank should be made safe from HIV, ensuring the use of only good blood and not the infected blood. And also proper disposal of needles and syringes in public and private hospitals and clinics should be followed. Then free distribution of condoms should be done so that the spread of the disease from the male partner to the female partner can be prevented, or vice versa, it can be prevented. And the control of drug abuse, that should also be taken into control. And also various education should be given in order to follow safe sex, and also to promote regular checkups for HIV susceptible population, because as I told you, to develop symptoms it may take months together and years together, and by the time the person might have spread infection to a number of people. So that is why all these programs are set up to educate the healthy people as well as the HIV infected people. So these are the preventive measures that can be followed. So this was about this particular topic wherein we studied about AIDS, how exactly it spreads, what are the different techniques or methodologies that can be followed to prevent AIDS, and also we studied about the replication process of the HIV virus or the retrovirus. In the coming session, we shall discuss about one more devastating disease which is called as cancer. How cancer spreads, what is it, what are the different types, all that we'll study. And also we'll study about drug and alcohol abuse, because drug abuse is one of the leading factors for the spread of HIV as well, and alcohol abuse can also ruin many families. So we just have one life, right? And we need to lead it happily, not spoil it going behind drugs and alcohol. All these are just temporary, they don't give you permanent happiness. So what all can be done, all that we shall study in the coming session. So we shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.